Welcome back to the Quiet Part Out Loud podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Nuvyn.
And today we are here with Dawn de Lima, EVP of Corporate Services and Chief Inclusion and Diversity Officer at TC Energy and a member of our Axis board. Welcome, Dawn.
We are so delighted to have you here today.
Very delighted to be here.
Yes. You've had such a long and illustrious career, and I can't wait to go into that. But we always start off our podcast with a fun question to set the stage, keeps everybody on the same playing field, and then we get to know about your movie habits. So if someone made a movie about your career, what would it be? What would be the main themes?
It would be called Make Work Your Favorite. And that is from the movie Elf. And that would be the truth.
That would be it.
I used to say that to my children. Just make work your favorite. It's easier in life if you can just embrace that you're going to work, try to enjoy it, try to work with people you like, accept the burden, and carry on.
Yeah.
So that would definitely be the title of my movie. Yeah.
Would it be an adventure?
It would definitely
not
be.
a comedy?
Well,
hopefully not a horror film, a thriller.
Not a horror film, an adventure. I actually somewhat boring in some instances. Honestly, I work and good things have happened. Not just due to hard work, but to great people who have sponsored me, have given me opportunity, and I've stepped through that door, which you need both, I think, to have a long, successful career.
Now we get to know who would play you in the movie.
Ooh.
Yeah, who would play you?
That's always
Who would be your first choice?
question. But has a theme like Make Work Your Favorite impacted or influenced the way that you alluded to your kids, parented and set them up for success in their own professional journeys?
That's a good question. So I have 3 adult children. So I've got a long history with the kids too, and have had ample time to provide sage advice, which they will or will not listen to, depending on the day and if they feel like it. But I have always encouraged them to lean into work. Really just don't be afraid of hard work. Don't be afraid of failing. Fail hard, fail fast, because you learn from when you succeed, and you learn more almost from when you fail. Put up your hand for things that others will not. So just don't be shy to say, I'll do that. Even if you don't know what the heck you're doing, there are people around you that will help. You can seek out external people, but really lean into your career. If you want it to be interesting, if you want it to advance, if you want to be engaged in a way that some people choose not to. So, and I would say they're all very much in their careers, successful for young people, but they did grow up with a workaholic mother, so they learned the work ethic, but they had to themselves decide if they wanted to embrace it or not, which they have, which is great.
Yeah, and not to shy away from hard work. There's no way around that.
There's no, I've had some people say to me, it's interesting, your company as big as TC Energy does succession planning, right? Most publicly traded companies take that very seriously. Board members take it very seriously. And over the years, I've had people say, well, I really love the title, but I don't want to work as hard as you do. Well, one comes with the other. One comes with the other. So you as an individual have to decide how hard you're willing to work, what you're willing to sacrifice, because there's sacrifices along the way. And can you be happy with that? Or do you feel that you're missing out in some areas? And the sacrifice can be hard, like bad parenting moments, bad spousal moments, but just when you're not at your best. So people around you sometimes feel the pain of that sacrifice, but it's a choice. It's a choice for sure.
And as a self-proclaimed workaholic,
Mhm.
what does that mean for you? I mean, what kind of sacrifices did you experience?
Well, maybe I'll talk about my kids first. So I always wanted my children to be friends with me when they became adults. So I'm happy that they are. And they would say, although this is not actually factual, they would say that I was there for everything. And there's no way I was there for everything. I could not be there. I had 3 kids, in different sports or music, going in different directions. And I'm still married to the same person, but sometimes I would have been better if I had a wife, who could help me a little more.
Wouldn't we all be better if we had wives?
Yes, I think so. We all talk about that. But I tried to make sure I was at the important things. But what that might look like is when they were doing a school play or they were doing a band, a show for their band or music, whatever they were in, I might only catch the tail end because I could not be there at whatever early time it started. So I'd catch the tail end, could have my husband or someone videotape it so I could see it later. So I was there, but I wasn't present for the whole thing. That was a decision that I made and that I was okay with. Like I said, they would say I was there for everything. I would say I was there for things that were really important and could discern the difference in my mind. Anyway, they don't complain about it today. And I think there's other things like, how do you fit in really good hobbies, friends? So I have a very, very close, tight circuit of friends. I don't have a lot of friends, but the friends I have, I value. So you do everything to keep that alive. But they would understand when it was just impossible for me to do the girls' trip or go out for the dinner. But you need to work to really keep those vibrant and alive in other ways. But there's a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, a lot of women and men would say when they have had really fulsome careers that have grown in scope and responsibility, sometimes you just have to pick work over other things.
And you find it fulfilling, probably
It's
in multiple
fulfilling.
levels.
It's like intellectually stimulating all the time. There's never a lack of challenge. And the bigger the career portfolio, the bigger the challenge will be and the complexity of that challenge. People are complex. People themselves are challenging. We don't know everything about the people we work with. So that can create challenging but interesting dynamics. And then the pace. So I love the pace also of a really busy career. So yeah, I really am fortunate to be a person that really does love to work.
Yeah. So throughout your career journey, was there a time or a shift? And at what point, if there was one, did this happen where you were focused on advancing your career and now seeing like you're in a role to advocate for others and to mentor and sponsor others, or to look at changing the system and how are we putting improvements or new frameworks in place that facilitate more inclusion in the workforce? When did that process take place?
I don't know if there was a single point. It's an evolution for sure. I would say as a huge chunk of my career has been in human resources. I've always, a part of my career and a part of my responsibility was to create, whether it's policies, process, training, development for people to advance. But I think it probably hit me more when I got to the VP level, because at that level in large companies, you really have more of a voice. And you can have more of a real imprint in the work you are doing and how that work affects others. Another thing I think about is just my evolution as a woman in a career that in previous years has been very male dominated. Now I work in a company where 50% of the executives are women. It's amazing. And it's a very different dynamic for sure. But it's very hard for, say, single moms to have very big jobs because I'd say in the past we're unforgiving as a society or industries or corporations. So I have a real empathy for women that are raising their families as single mothers, having big careers. That was a big shift for me at a certain point where I'm like, we're missing a huge part of the workforce if we can't figure out how to accommodate this group of people. And I remember years ago, and I'm really dating myself, and I can't imagine it happens now, but who knows? I was in recruitment a long time ago and would do searches, and companies wouldn't want single mothers. They would not want to have them. in any role because of the inconvenience it was to them. So I see that as a huge responsibility to clear the barriers around that. And I think as a society, we're doing much better, but I'm sure we can do more in that area. And then as I evolved my career and gained a deeper appreciation for the differences people bring, I think you have to learn that. I mean, maybe some people are brought up a certain way where it's easier. For me, it's been a real evolution that to bring people into the workforce and around you that think very differently. Very easy to hire, very easy to hire someone who has the same opinion as you have and will just validate everything you say. That makes life easy, but it certainly doesn't benefit an organization and it doesn't benefit the people around you. So this whole space of diversity and inclusion, which I know is shunned upon with our southern neighbors. And I say southern neighbors because I work in a company that's Canada, US, and Mexico, and I love my American friends. But we have to adapt as policies adapt, as governments adapt. But I think as humans and as businesses, we can still choose to do the right thing, regardless of policy and practice. You can still do the right thing and be inclusive in your practices and in your hiring and make a work environment safe for anyone to work in. But it's not easy.
No.
On that note, I'm so curious how you navigate that. How do you dance around that with your portfolio and doing the real work, but maybe it's called something different?
Yeah.
Well, how have you navigated that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll be specific in the US. You know, from a governance perspective, policy and practice, the government in the US no longer wants targets. Well, okay, well, we don't have to have targets. And you'll see organizations in the past year and a half have actually transitioned and moved away from targets. But again, that doesn't prevent us from doing the right thing. That doesn't prevent us from creating an organization that welcomes diversity of opinion, of education. But what we want is people to align to the values of the organization. But bring whatever you bring, your history, your experience, your thinking, and bring that. And if the thinking is different, that makes us better. So we'll continue as an organization to do what we call the right thing. And we've moved away from targets. We're not going to do anything illegal, obviously. And we don't want to be at odds with any sitting government. We need to support the governments that are in power, and then we need to figure out how to run our organization. So it can be a bit tricky, but we'll always adhere to the law. And I'll give you an example. We're in Mexico City. So in Mexico, they had 2-3 years ago labor reform, and it completely changed our compensation model. It completely changed having contractors versus full-time. Basically, the government said you will not hire all these people on contract. They will go on your payroll. This is the minimum, not like a minimum wage, but these are the minimum standards. It's not how we went into it. I would say we have fair and equitable pay practices. This was different, so we put it in place. Like, I'm not, what hill do we want to die on? If we go back to, like I said, let's stick to doing the right thing as an organization and for our people, and building a psychologically safe workforce is one of the most important things I think that we can do. And it's something that we're working at.
Yeah, the entire ecosystem and just how people consume content, understand the world around them, and navigate through the complexities of DEI or whatever you might call it in the changing geopolitical landscape must make for potential challenges for a company like TC that has footprints in like 3 different, very different countries.
We need to meet people where they're at. So when you talk about DEI in a Calgary corporate head office versus a Houston head office versus a field site in Louisiana, it's all very different. And these are all great people with their own views, but we have to meet people where they're at and help to evolve all of our thinking. And we can't evolve our thinking in a corporate head office if we don't even understand the thinking of people in very remote locations. So that takes a conscious effort. And I think that helps to figure out how to maneuver some of these tricky spots that we're in right now.
How can a company facilitate those challenging discussions, where you're talking about guns or Second Amendment rights
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
there's no shortage of controversial discussions, but in a way, having them with your colleagues actually makes you understand and appreciate
Totally.
this more. But I think often corporations are very hesitant to even engage in something where there could be risk or
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's contentious, right? And you don't want to get people up in arms, so to speak, by bringing up a topic. One of the things that we've done over the last 4.5 years, maybe, we have a survey. So it's called the Pulse Survey. So we do this survey every other week. The survey goes out. And the reason you do it so much is you do few questions. It didn't start like this. Few questions, very targeted. And then leaders can actually see the anonymous responses of employees and engage in a discussion. It has been amazing. It has been absolutely amazing. In the beginning, everyone was worried. People putting in comments were worried because they thought we were just going to, Big Brother's watching you. It's completely blind. Then when we opened it up for leaders to see responses, some of them would get upset because maybe they thought they were better leaders than they were. And their employee base is saying you're not so good. But this has allowed us to have this sort of continuous learning loop and open discussion between leaders and our broad employee base. Then we can pick up themes.
Right.
Where are there issues or concerns? And then we can figure out how to address them. And this opens up a pathway for us to have any conversation that might be on people's minds. So this was what worked for us as a larger organization. And along this path and this journey, you need to educate leaders to be open and receptive to what they're hearing from their employees, because you might not always like it. And there's some things you can't change. So if someone says to me, Dawn, why aren't you building a gym in the Calgary head office? Well, I can't build a gym everywhere. Like, how is it fair? How is it fair for, to build a gym here and we can't do it anywhere else? So some things are pretty cut and dry. Hybrid work, which has been a huge contentious issue across North America. And we have a practice where in the office Monday, Tuesday, and people can work from home, Wednesday and Friday, if it works for the business. If their job allows it, if it works for them. You can come in 5 days a week if you want, but come in 3 days and then the option to work from home 2 days. Well, I still get asked, are we going to change that, or can we work from home 5 days? No, you can't.
Right.
Yeah. But the thing with this survey is it creates an opportunity for employees and leaders alike to actually start a conversation. And usually what will happen, anonymous comment will come in. And leader will say, hey, I'd love to talk about this. And the person will come forward and say, I wrote that, so let's talk about it. So
And
there's different tricks.
every other week, hey?
Yeah, the survey goes out every other week, and then you pull the response, I think, once a month. And it's just, we used to do, big long survey, and it would take, now this takes you a minute at most to complete, probably 30 seconds.
But that goes to the whole employee base.
Everybody.
Every 2 weeks.
CEOs, direct reports, everybody. Yeah.
Someone like yourself who's at in a leadership role, particularly in the space of HR, how have you observed the gender pay gap evolve in your time as a professional?
That's loaded.
No. Don't you like how we did not prepare any of
not
these
on the list
questions?
of questions.
So I got to stop hitting the mic. I'll tell you, I think it was Deloitte, and if I'm misrepresenting, Deloitte or McKinsey did a white paper, I think it was 2 years ago. And they said that the gender, like the pay gap wouldn't be closed for 123 years or something at the rate we're going. It's just, it's a bit crushing when you hear that.
But have things like transparency in pay facilitated at least bridging that gap?
Oh yeah, like there's a lot that's evolved in a 20-year period for sure. Companies now, larger companies look at pay ranges by role, not by person, right? So you have to take the name out of it. And then jobs have a range, roles have a range, and so that's easier to bridge that. There are some little things we have to watch for, like, for example, and we watch for this in our data to make sure that if we need to course correct. So I would look at my team, this data upside down, inside out, backwards, because we don't want that to be an issue in the organization. And I would say it is not. Makes a big difference when you have a CEO that leads with transparency, believes in pay equity, etc. It has to start at a very senior level in the organization. But so you would have a range where you would bring an individual in for a certain role. Leaders will tend to bring in women lower than men. That's still a thing. And so you have to always be watching to ensure that we're not, and it's a subconscious thing. I would say, though, today compared to 10 years ago, I mean, oh my goodness, it's night and day. We have much more pay equity. We have many more women in senior technical roles in this company than I have ever seen. Makes a huge difference. So you're not doing all the service roles. You're actually in full-on operational roles. But I will say this, if an organization doesn't actually look at the data for pay, you'll easily slip to one side. You have to look at it holistically. You have to slice and dice it different ways. You have to make sure there's a practice in place that's usually set by an HR team to ensure that an individual or group of individuals can't be derailed by someone or because of their gender or race. So there's a lot that goes into ensuring pay equity, and there will continue to be for years and years to come. But I'm happy to say that if I look back 20 years to today, night and day, I'd say practices are different. Boards take this very seriously. If it's on a board radar, that's really important. Boards take succession very seriously. They take pay. They want the right mix in an organization. So when something reaches that level of awareness, that helps. That helps a lot.
I'm curious at the individual level, are there cues that an organization is monitoring pay equity? Yeah. Can somebody look for something and say, okay, this is important to this organization?
Yeah, totally. So I'll start from a sort of macro HR perspective, then down to the leader perspective, because we can look at data specific to manager and their direct reports. So we can break this down any way we need to break it down, to see if there's a break someplace, to see if a leader in a certain area is, I'll say, overpaying, underpaying, is skewed to one side or another. It's very easy to course correct that. And then you put, again, just I'd say the pay practices that are put in place, people are bound, right? You can't go lower or higher without this being noticed. Because it's done by role, it doesn't matter if a male is leaving the role and a woman's coming in, that pay scale doesn't change unless the job has really changed. Maybe something's been added to the portfolio, then you would have to expand that range. But yes, today data is very easy to pull down to the minutia to see if there's a problem. And most companies I would say today, have an HR team that would look at that to make sure there's no outliers. And we will look for the outliers. And if we find a group of outliers, we would just do a course correct. So if you found, for example, that mid-career women were paid 20% or 10% less than all the men, you would just do a pay adjustment. Like, that's how easy it is to fix now.
So I want to pivot a bit to talk about your community leadership and involvement, because as someone, a self-declared, I love work. Yes. I won't say workaholic because that has a bad connotation.
It does, yeah.
But someone who just I enjoy work and I'm proud of how much I contribute to my profession. How do you balance that with your community leadership? Because your experience at the helm of Junior Achievement, which is an exceptional organization, having tremendous impact. Obviously, access connects, and there are others. How do you prioritize that?
So it's hard to fit it all in, but you know how you just say you just do?
Yeah.
I think I feel very grateful for the life I have. I am very grateful for the career I've had. I'm very grateful to the people that have supported that career. And I actually feel, and I don't want obligated to be taken negatively, to give back. And I have something to give back. I have a skill set or experience, and I think I should. I think we all should where we can. And that means different things for different people. But so I feel that. So then it's easier to make the time for these important not-for-profit. Junior achievement, I've been involved in almost 2 decades, like way more than I thought I would ever be. I'll just say that. It's just been, that just had its own life and its own evolution. And I chaired Junior Achievement Canada for 8 years, I think, way past my term. But no one would take the job behind me because they kept saying it's too much work, Dawn. Like same as any other career.
You set a high bar.
Yeah.
And I like personally get a ton of fulfillment participating in something outside of work, because again, I'm working alongside great people. Like I get to work with you two, right, on Access. So you work with great people, you meet new people. It's intellectually stimulating. It's energizing. So I think if this drained me, that would be a challenge. But it actually, brings me something. And you just can't take. You have to give back. And the trick is, you could keep saying yes to everything, right? So you do have to limit where you can put your time. And I choose to put my time, when I give my time, I give as much time as needed to get the job done again.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's more fulfilling and energizing than tiring, for sure.
Yeah. And with your exposure to JA, Access, your role at TC, how would you say early exposure to mentors, sponsors, role models for young women connects to, more success or more leadership roles eventually in their career?
There wasn't a lot, like I'm really dating myself, but there was not a lot of women mentors when I was young in my career. I'm very fortunate to have some really great male sponsorship. Like that's equally important, men or women. I do like the She Innovates, if you see it, you can be it.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that young women need to see themselves someplace. And I think that has a huge impact, because where a young woman might feel discouraged to go into something and they see a young woman in particular, thriving in an environment, it opens up those doors. And I think it makes them think more broadly about what they can or cannot do. So it is really important. So mentorship is really important. Exposure is really important. I would say to any young person, male or female, you have to decide how much of your career you're going to drive. Because an organization is really just not going to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, we want you over here. That happens on occasion. And that's probably because you're doing a whole bunch of things outside the norm. But you need to take ownership of your career. You need to look for mentors, and don't be afraid to ask for conversations. Get involved in your work outside of your core group to get the exposure that you would need to new things in different areas. Participate in the volunteer activities that go on in your company, because there's probably a lot of them. I don't know, in this city, in Calgary, I don't know a company that does not have active volunteer programs for their employee base. Not a one. Like, this city is a very giving city. So get involved in that. I think to have an understanding of what the art of the possible is for you, you have to really get out of your comfort zone and try something new and dig into something new. And don't be afraid of doing that. And where you can seek out a mentor, seek out a mentor. It for sure, the opportunity to talk through things, get advice is clearly important. I would say mine would have been a group of girlfriends, small group of girlfriends that I knew if I phoned or talked to them or asked them something, it stayed with them. That information didn't go anywhere. So there was that level of trust. And I also knew that they would tell me honestly what they thought of something. They would tell me if I was offside. They would tell me if the situation was offside. They would provide sage advice. But that has been really important. So your external network, whatever that looks like, however you can form it, is critical to your career because you never know when you're going to draw on that.
The old adage of like, if you just work harder, you will be rewarded. That sounds like it's not the case. And so, like, yes, work hard. Yes, do your job. And there must be other things that you do because just working hard is not going to get you there.
Yeah. I think that's a fair statement. I mean, how many people work hard? So many people work hard. You can be working retail and you are working really hard. And you're working long hours on your feet, but that might not, you could be a salesperson. That does not mean you're going to be a manager or a general manager. The same in corporations. Working hard is part of it. So work ethic, let's just say that's it's kind of a baseline. So having a strong work ethic, I think people that see bigger careers, have a degree of curiosity about what's going on outside their immediate. B, have a courageous outlook. Because sometimes you're maybe the person delivering the news that really nobody wants to hear, but it has to be delivered. And you can choose to hide behind that and not do that. But the more senior in an organization you go, the truth has to be told. And people can choose to turn a blind eye or not say something. So I think courageous leadership is critical. I think emotional intelligence has become more important in the past 5 years than it was 20 years ago. So self-awareness, knowing who you are, knowing your impact in a room, being able to stop and reflect upon your own actions. This is really, really another important part, I think, of broader leadership, and being okay with ambiguity. You have to be. And some people are rigid and some people are okay. They can adapt. But look at the change in the US. So, and the new sitting government, look at the tariffs. That's just one thing that have been imposed. How that has impacted businesses across Canada is monumental. Well, we've all had to figure it out because you can't complain about it. You can't act like it's not happening. You need to figure out how are you going to adapt to this new way of working. So that adaptability is also important. I just don't have I don't think anyone has here's the list of the 10 things. And if you do all of this, things will happen. Things might happen, but here's the list that might help you expand your career and how you're thinking about it. But you're right. Working hard is just not enough. It's just not enough. So,
when were there times in your career when you knew you needed to like double down or pivot or reframe? Like I think we all have those moments where you're like, I don't like to use the expression like this is my hill to die on, but you're like very focused on this is the right thing to do, or this is why we need to take this course of action. And you're relentless in pursuing that, sometimes like against all odds.
I would think any leader who's had me report directly to them would say, ugh, please. Like sometimes I drip water. Like I'll have to think of a specific example, but I will go to the table many times if I really believe we're going down a path that's not right for the organization for whatever reason. Again, I do pick my battles. Some things are just, you might not agree with, but it's like, okay, this is just not going to hurt us overall. but I will keep going back in my nice way and probably get more forceful. Or if I think if I haven't made my point, I go back and I'll think, "Ugh, like I didn't land that plane. What am I missing?" So I have to rethink, how did I approach this? My argument wasn't strong enough. Do I have enough facts? Oh, I will keep going back.
You will.
I will keep going back. And maybe ad nauseum sometimes, but it's not on everything for sure.
Right.
It's just on things that I think are
You care
really,
deeply about.
yeah. And I just try different ways maybe to influence a different outcome, I guess. Yeah.
How were you purposeful in your career? I mean, as someone that, you've mentioned you enjoy work, but has your journey been purposeful?
Yes, it has. In the beginning, it wasn't. I think how I started really thinking about my career, we've all had really awful bosses, right? Like you can watch the movie Horrible Bosses, but we've all had horrible bosses. And I remember one really clarifying moment where I had this boss, and I ended up being the spokesperson for the group of us. Because I was not really afraid to go take him on. And I just went home and I said to my husband, like, if he can do it, anyone can do it, basically, but I think I could do it better. And that just started me thinking about, what do I want? What do I want for my career? What role do I want? Do I want to be a leader? What does that mean? People who go into leadership roles because they think they're going to make more money. I mean, I just think that's so frustrating because, again, people are super complicated and require a lot of energy and attention, as they should. We're humans. But there was a few things that happened with, I would say, poor bosses, not good bosses, where I thought, no, I actually can do that job. And the next time it's open, I want that job. And then I would let that be known. So the peril potentially is you let people know that that's what you want and they still say no. I was really fortunate once someone did get promoted into a role that I wanted. But then I realized I hadn't told anyone I wanted it. It was just in my head, I wanted it. And a vice president flew out to see me. So I must have been a valuable enough contributor. And he took me out for lunch and he said, okay, what is it? Why do you want this job? And why do you think you would be good at it? And I told him. He said, okay, here's 2 gaps you need to fill. So he was very direct with me, which to me is a gift, if you can be that direct. You need to do these things. And the next time this is open, I'll give you the job. And he did. Now, had I not complained after this person got hired, which is not really the best way of doing it in hindsight, and had that individual not taken the time, it was really gracious. I think of it now. He flew out from Eastern Canada to come and have lunch with me. I mean, he had other meetings, but, and then was very direct about what he wanted to see. And I said, okay, I will do that. And I did. And then for me, it was always, let's observe who's, I think, is a really good leader. And why are they good? And what makes them good? And why are people following that person? And where do I really want to go? So I'd say, yes, very deliberate in my thinking. I'm a planner, so I do plan things. But then you still need to have the sponsorship, right?
Right.
You still need to be seen by other leaders who can see maybe the potential in you and take a chance on you, because organizations are taking a chance on you as a leader. What you're doing as an individual is taking a chance, stepping into a bigger role. So everyone's really trying to make this work, and everyone's taking a bit of a chance. Because your first leadership role, you're not a known leader. How are you going to do? We don't know. We think we know based on certain attributes and behaviors, what we've observed, but we don't know till you're in the chair. So there's a risk on the company's part and on the individual's part. And you both have to leap at that and try to make it better. But I would say I'd be more deliberate than most. I didn't think, oh, I want to be like a EVP. I never thought, I thought every role at a time. I'm like, okay, I'm a manager and I'd like to be a director, or I would like to, oversee something like this. And then I did make a very deliberate choice to come out of HR and go into something else. That was a very, very deliberate decision. And then again, someone had to take a chance on me to put me into a role where I had zero experience, knowledge, nothing. Like, all I asked of that leader was, could you please not fire me? Please don't fire me.
And so what was it about that leader that said, Dawn is worth taking a chance on? Was it your previous work ethic, experience, reputation, what you had achieved already? Or was it that I'm going to invest in your potential?
So both for sure. I mean, I think I had a good track record. I was known as an individual who would speak out or speak up. I was also known to put my hand up for work, sometimes work that others wouldn't do, but I put my hand up to try something new or lead something new. And that person saw potential in me. So it was all of the above. And then again, that person took a huge leap on me, and I took a huge leap because if it didn't work, it would have, probably been the end of my career. At that juncture in that organization, something else would have come up. But so I think when you recognize that someone is really putting their trust in you, you carry that on your shoulders. So you have to ante up, and you have to work, and you have to research, and you have to try to understand that which you don't understand. And one of the biggest things you learn is how to work through people. Because when you're leading something that you are not the expert in, you are heavily, heavily reliant on all the really smart people around you. And in most cases, they're way smarter than you. So you have to learn how to listen. You have to learn what questions to ask, how to engage people. And that was, I'd say, it's a big turning point when you can figure out how to really lead through others and be part of a team of people that know way more than you.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the case all the time now. Like, people are so smart. These young people are so smart, up and coming people. So it's humbling.
TCE won a DEI Trailblazer Award at the event we held in September for the Prosperity Project's annual report card.
Yes.
And you said at that event, you don't need to suffer to advance.
Yeah.
And I'm quoting you. Great. So I'm curious, maybe if you could talk about what you were referring to, either personally or if there's an example. And then what do you want the next generation to never have to suffer through or experience?
That's a tough one. So I think any career that's been extremely diverse and that has grown, there's a degree of maybe suffering's a really extreme word, but there are certainly challenges. I mean, there's a few times where I'll give you this one example, where I was put into a role. So my predecessor had been a male. It was a decent sized role, and I was paid 50% of 50%. There was no benchmarking that supported what I was getting paid. So I remember going home to my husband, who's way more emotional than me normally. And I was like, oh, this is what they're doing. I don't even want to take this stupid job. And he said, yeah, you're going to zip it up. You're going to take the job. You're going to work hard, and you're going to show them. And this will be course corrected. And he was right, but that never should have happened.
Mm-hmm.
It never, ever, ever should have happened. Because you would not, now I'm going back a lot of years, you would not have seen that happen to a male in the same circumstance in any situation. That should never happen again. And when we talk about pay equity, we've evolved in 2 decades considerably. And I can say, hand on heart, in an organization like TCE, compensation is not based on gender at all. It is based on the role and the breadth and depth and skill set required for the role. No one should ever have to go through that. And I worked at a time where there would have been fewer women at the table than men. So that was not without its challenges. It is very, very true that when you have a balanced equal number of men and women at any table, the dynamic completely shifts. It completely shifts. how women are listened to, where they can find their voice, how they help each other. And that has been a really fun evolution of my role.
It's been fascinating connecting with you today, and so grateful for your perspective and everything that you continue to contribute to Access, Junior Achievement, other organizations, She Innovates, and of course your leadership at TC Energy. And we're grateful for your support. And delighted that you could chat with us today.
Well, thanks for having me, you guys. This was a ton of fun.
The Quiet Part Out Loud is produced by Access Connects and brought to you by, oh wait, is there a sponsorship opportunity there? Learn more at accessconnects.com.